Hey guys, hello everyone. Today we have a slightly unusual video. It's going to be about children's toys, or more specifically one children's toy. This toy has been getting a lot of buzz lately, Huggy Wuggy. I've received many requests about this topic. Usually I don't do breakdowns of toys or anything like that, but I got so many questions about this particular toy. I mentioned some of my feelings about it, how I see this toy over on my Telegram channel. But after I posted a short note there, I got even more messages and requests to make a full-fledged video on YouTube and so on. So, in response, I'm making this video. First, I want to note that a lot of people don't even know where this character came from, who he is. And for me, honestly, it was quite surprising how this character, who's originally from a survival horror style game, ended up as a beloved toy for children so taught. A lot of parents started giving this toy to their kids. Sometimes the child is still in daycare or not even in daycare yet and already has this toy. They see it as the cutest thing ever. Let's figure out where this toy originated, and whether it really can fit into this cute and cuddly image for Zokoth children. First off, I find it odd that a horror survival game character became a mainstream children's toy. For those who don't know, Huggy Wuggy was originally a character in a game called Poppy Playtime. It's a horror game, a survival horror game. If you're unfamiliar with horror games, these are horror genre video games. Specifically, Poppy Playtime is a game of survival in a frightening environment. Basically, kill or be killed. Survive at all costs. So Huggy Wuggy is the game's main antagonist, the main creepy figure, the main horror of the game. He was written and designed to create an atmosphere of fear and anxiety. Obviously, the people who created him, likely not just developers, but maybe psychologists or others who consult on these games, did so on purpose because that's the main point of such a character, to provoke terror. Horror games, like horror movies, revolve around fear and dread. In fact, survival horror literally means you're surviving in a nightmare environment. You can verify all this online. There's no point in me hyping it up. Anyone can look up what it's about, why, and so on. Of course, these types of games, like horror films, come with age restrictions. We know why. They strongly affect the psyche. That's their entire purpose, to impact our mental state, not in the best way. So they carry age warnings and are absolutely not recommended for children. My question is directed especially at parents who buy these toys aimed to their kids. How does a character from a survival horror game, someone meant to look terrifying, who literally chases after the main player in the game, catches them and kills them with a sort of shook singe in the storyline Huggy Wuggy, basically to ducks you to death? How does that character become a beloved sort of children's toy? That's a huge question for me, but I can answer how it happened. As usual, these main creepy things, like Siren Head, for instance, or random internet creepypasta, spread through YouTube bloggers. They're the ones funneling horror stuff to your kids primarily via YouTube. I suspect that from the start, certain advertising managers or agencies contact YouTubers to promote a game, a storyline, some character, or some theme park. Usually, the creators of a game like Poppy Playtime hire advertising managers who then reach out to big YouTubers. And since YouTubers today have huge influence, especially when it comes to advertising, it's a perfect promotion pipeline. When you see some YouTuber making multiple videos about a certain scary character, analyzing it, dressing up as it, that's often paid promotion. The Poppy Playtime developers did an excellent job marketing. They pushed the character Huggy Wuggy online. It gained traction, and soon the character became famous even among people who never heard of the game. That hype took off, and next thing you know, it became a too cute plus toy, losing sight of the original context that it's actually a horror antagonist in a game with a strict age rating. The folks who designed Huggy Wuggy knew what they were doing. They knew how this character affects a person's psyche. And we're not just talking about children's psyche here. From the start, kids weren't supposed to be anywhere near it, considering the game's age rating. Anyway, now that we understand how it all started, how this craze for Huggy Wuggy spread, let's explore my perspective, my extrasensory or energy-based viewpoint of this toy, how I see and feel it, even before I knew exactly where the toy came from. I found it very hard to even call this toy. Sure, if we're talking about a character from a computer game, you might say it's a game toy, but the very first time I saw it, my immediate reaction was to want to rip out its stuffing. Sorry if that sounds harsh, but that's truly how I felt. I've often mentioned on my channel that I seize the subtle or energy plane. I can perceive entities, including those attached to people. So for me, it's everyday reality. It's nothing mind-blowing or crazy. I live with it. That's precisely why I dislike horror films. I see enough horrors in real life. Why watch more on a screen? Back to the point, from the vantage of energy vision, my sense of this toy was that it's not harmless at all. It reflects some kind of negative energy creature or real entity. Whenever I even catch a glimpse of that toy, maybe on a t-shirt or wherever I get this internal jolt, then I notice, oh, that's Huggy Wuggy. It's similar to when I pass by someone with a large, heavy, negative entity on them. My internal alarms ring, as if I'm facing a snarling dog about to attack, and my body and mind tense up. That's the feeling I get around Huggy Wuggy plushies or images. People see them as cute sofa toys, but in the actual game you have to be 130 or even older. Yet the plush version looks so harmless, right? So supposedly it won't provoke those same psychological reactions, and parents give it to toddler sellers. So many times I've felt that fearful tension, turned around, and seen a child holding a Huggy Wuggy toy. It's not coincidental. Because it's not just me and my personal viewpoint, the entity represented by that toy literally attaches itself to kids. It's like it sits on their shoulders and slowly strangles them. Just like in the game's storyline, where Huggy kills the protagonist by hugging them. If you watch some of my older videos on YouTube, you'll see where I explain how negative entities come into being and how they feed off people's energy. That's exactly what's going on here. The toy is designed from the start to provoke fear or negative energy in people who engage with it. And I've mentioned many times that horror films, horror games, those scary series are not harmless. They serve as portals, serve as portals, letting negative entities into your home, into your mind. It's not just that you watch a horror movie, then you can't sleep. You've basically opened the door to all those things, invited them to come in. It's the same with Huggy Wuggy. People have shared stories with me about how their kids react to the toy. Some psychologists even wrote articles analyzing it, saying Huggy Wuggy can have a delayed psychological impact on a child. We're talking long-term effects. Maybe a child won't show signs immediately, but a few years later, who knows how it might manifest. Here's a real life example. A family gave their child a Huggy Wuggy for a birthday present. The kid was ecstatic all day, hugging to bit and kissing it. That night, the child woke up screaming in absolute hysterics. Three adults in the household couldn't calm down. He kept crying, "Mom, it wants to eat me." This is a real story from people who aren't even into my kind of content, who believe horror movies are fun and see nothing wrong with a cute plush. They were shocked. The child wouldn't stop screaming until they all took that toy and threw it out in the middle of the night. Literally took it to the dumpster, and only then did he calm down. If this were just such an isolated incident, I might wonder if that child was unusually sensitive. But it's not. Another kid demanded the toy because everyone at daycare had it. Again, we're talking preschool, not even elementary school. The parents gave in. The child was thrilled during the day, but then at night, nightmares. Huggy Wuggy trying to devour him. And that's the problem. Even if you don't know the character's background, even if you think it's just some cute plush with big eyes and a wide grin, the entity behind it is still there. Because the designers, those who created the character for the horror game, instilled it with a certain nature, a certain biography, so to speak. Each plush figure that represents Huggy Wuggy is going to carry those same traits. It doesn't matter if you, the parent, are unaware of the original story. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, as they say. You not knowing the origin doesn't stop the toy from exerting exactly the function for which it was created, to instill fear, anxiety, tension. If the creators designed it as a terrifying predator for a survival horror game where you either kill or be killed, then that energy is still embedded in the character. Whether it's a plush you hold in your hands or a menacing figure on a computer screen, it's the same energy. Please keep that in mind. Also, some people argue, well, maybe this only affects very small kids, like 2 or 3 years old, but older children aren't bothered. But I spoke to a teacher who works with older kids intently, and they're obsessed with Huggy Wuggy, carrying them around at school. That same teacher told me how one time the lights went out at school and those kids were genuinely frightened, imagining Huggy Wuggy lurking in the dark. That's exactly the type of delayed psychological effect professionals warn about in the end. The toy is fulfilling its purpose, the one its creators intended, and the reason they heavily promoted it. This marketing was no accident. It was pushed widely through YouTubers and other media channels so that if you don't have a Huggy Wuggy, you're not cool. Cool. You're missing out. They're programming and influencing people, and everyone laps it up. It's a prime example of social programming. No one's hiding anything. The information is freely available online about who Huggy Wuggy is and what kind of game he's from. And yet parents go out, buy this murderous plush with a horror age rating, and hand it to a 2-year-old. That's mind-boggling. So, let's keep going. People often say, well, the game is only recommended for older players, but the plush is so cute, it must be fine for younger kids. But think about what we just covered. It's all designed to feed on fear, to drain people's energy. Horror films, horror games, or any type of disturbing content can act like a portal, letting these entities come through. The same goes for certain music videos, ones featuring demon, like creatures, horns, creepy imagery. There are loads of these being released. They aren't just autistic or itchy, they're often a direct invitation for that negativity to enter your space. Now, I'll share a couple more stories that people have told me about how their children specifically reacted to Huggy Wuggy. A lot of psychologists have studied it and concluded this toy exerts a profound psychological effect on kids, sometimes delayed. That means you might not see any reaction at first, but it could surface later, maybe years down the road. No one can be sure what the outcome will be. Even people who don't believe in subtle energies or entities have reported disturbing experiences. For instance, I heard about a child who got a Huggy Wuggy for his birthday. He adored it all day, absolutely loved it. But at night he woke up in terror, crying that Huggy Wuggy was going to eat him. This meltdown lasted until the parents physically removed the toy from the house. That is not an isolated case. So, if it's supposed to be this adorable, fluffy, cuddly friend, how does the same child suddenly see it as a monster at night? Maybe, in those dark hours, the child finally sensed the toy's real energy. I've mentioned that I myself get tense vibes even walking past someone carrying a Huggy Wuggy on a t-shirt. Imagine the effect on a child who doesn't yet have the defenses or logical reasoning of an adult. Frankly, I'm horrified by this phenomenon. Even without knowing Huggy Wuggy's backstory, how it's from a horror survival game, I could feel that negative vibe right away. After learning it actually originated from a game rated for older audiences, the puzzle pieces fell into place. It's basically on the same energetic level as a horror film. If a movie is rated 18 plus because of intense violence and fear, yet here we have a plush with the exact same aura. And we're handing it to toddlers. Some might say, well, we showed them Squid Game, and that was 180 too, but all the kids watched it exactly anyway. We remember how that turned out. Kids started reenacting the violent scenes at school, hurting each other. The question is, why wasn't an 8 show consumed by so many young children? Because it got heavily promoted. The same is happening with Huggy Wuggy. Popular bloggers show it. Kids see it. and want it, and parents think it's some harmless fad. Except it's not harmless. Young minds are impressionable. And I do realize you can't 100% monitor an older child's internet use if they're, say, 10 or 15, but you can at least avoid actively encouraging it. Unfortunately, many parents are the ones going out to buy Huggy Wuggy plushies for their kids who are as young as 2 or 3. Another example, a child demanded the toy because all their friends in daycare had one. The parents gave in. The child was thrilled at first until the nightmares started where the toy was trying to devour them. Notice the child had no idea what the character's backstory was. They just saw it as a bright, smiling plush. But the energy is embedded in the design. The creators wrote the character as a horror entity that hunts and kills the protagonist. The entire structure, the facial expression, the storyline, those elements remain whether or not you know the original game. As the saying goes, ignorance of the law doesn't exempt you from it. Not knowing what Huggy Wuggy is doesn't protect you or your child from the negative effect it can have. The Huggy Wuggy was invented to spread fear. That fear factor, it is part of the survival horror design. So of course it's going to carry that same vibe even in plush form, because the creators infused it with that intention. That's how creativity works. A designer or artist invests certain qualities into a character, and those qualities remain. It doesn't matter if it's physically in your hands as a stuffed toy or an animated monster on your screen, the energy is the same. Some people think it'll only affect younger kids, but older ones are just having fun. Yet I've spoken with the teacher who works with kids around 10 years old. Practically all of them have a Huggy Wuggy. They take it to school, trade them, collect them. But guess what? If the lights go out, they get spooked and start imagining Huggy Wuggy lurking in the shadows. This is precisely the delayed psychological effect that experts talk about. Honestly, from what I see, the toy is doing exactly what its creators intended. It's not surprising they marketed it so aggressively through YouTubers and other media, so that it became a mass phenomenon. If you don't own one, you're not trendy. This is all social programming at its finest. No one is hiding anything. All the info is right there on the internet. You can learn who Huggy Wuggy is. You can see the game's age rating. And yet, people still choose to buy it for their toddlers. Then they sit back admiring how cute it is that their 2 or 3-year-old is running around with a plush murder monster. The game's rating was never a secret, but that's basically all I have to say for now, guys. Wishing you all goodness, love, and luck. I love you all, take care, hugs, and see you next time. And thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share my channel. Become a member of my Telegram channel and discuss with like-minded people as a supporting club member.